Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Man. And today, I'm still continuing with my Disney movie marathon. So, I still have some stuff to talk about Disney and the movies, of course. And this, more specifically, I want to talk about politics. I've spoken about politics before, so I just figured, well, here we go again. I really don't mind it, really. Whether you're a Democrat, liberal, conservative, Republican, neutral, or what have you, talking about politics can be such a dangerous thing in a lot of ways. But again, like I said a moment ago, I honestly don't mind it because I do believe you can be civil about it. We don't have to be going out hurting each other or what have you. But it can be a rather controversial thing to talk about, especially when it comes to popular studios like Disney and whatnot. Disney had made some political stuff before, so this isn't too much off of what they would do, I guess. But I just figured I would do this anyway. So it does come off like a lot of people act like as if they were Dale Gribble from Kim the Hero TV series, acting as if those conspiracy theories that are supposedly true, but in reality, that's all they are. Conspiracy theories, that's it. The government itself doesn't have to say everything about its secrets. Sometimes it is a good thing to keep its secrets, a secret. It doesn't have to tell everybody everything. Or you wouldn't want a communist state to know all of your secrets because they are the enemy. It's one thing to have a government helping people, which is fine. That's the whole point of having government. It's not supposed to help people, but not helping itself only. Problem with communism. It's only helping itself, not its citizens. That's the thing. And we're supposed to have a government that will unite everybody for the people and by the people, is what I believe in, folks. Sure, blame the government on every single bad thing that happens in the entire country, America. Not every single American citizen can be trusted. I'm not saying they're all bad, but some of them are. And not every single person around the world is evil, and not all of them are good. So, you just have to think about that. And having diversity isn't necessarily a bad thing. As long as there's a good flow to it, and as long as there's a reason for it, it should be fine. All I really care about is a good plot. That's literally it. I just want a good story with some conflict. Yes, I know those actresses and actors, like the actress who played Captain Marvel, would use politics to promote her movie, which of course is a bad thing because what you said about white people and straight people is just totally wrong if you ask me. As white straight people who are of a certain age, like in the 40s, are supposedly be bad or whatever, which of course is heterophobic, sexist, and it's racist. But of course, a lot of people seem to dismiss that, acting as though she has a point, when in reality she really does not. She has no clue what she's talking about. The whole thing when it comes to being woke, as a lot of people would be saying nowadays, that's such a dumb phrase as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, the whole thing, it means that you're now informed of things that you did not know. Previously, you're not in the dark about certain other societies and cultures whose past has been maybe edited or censored to make you think that it was not as bad as it was, than it actually was, or what have you. Of course, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to learn something and actually learn something. But when certain movies or certain TV shows want to promote the idea that we all should get along, that seems to be upset a lot of people and call those things woke, which just sounds funny in my eyes. But I guess to get more to the point, there's certain film franchise I would like to speak about for the rest of this video. I'm referring to Star Wars, and more specifically the films that are made by Disney and the upcoming films that's going to come afterwards in the incoming years. And these films had short diversity, but this seems to actually upset a lot of people. And when I say a lot, and I do mean a whole lot. And as though there might be some hidden messages or whatever, even though there's some political stuff that's already been there. course, I'm not going to include the prequel trilogy because the prequel trilogy is pretty awful. But in the original Star Wars trilogy, it already had some political stuff going on ever since the beginning. Princess Leia was actually inspired by the feminist movement way back when feminism actually meant something, way back in the day. So, of course, the feminazis, as we'll call them, the feminazis are just ruining feminism. It's not what it's supposed to be, which is one of the reasons I refuse to buy Captain Marvel film because it is feminist propaganda. But anyway, as I was saying, the character of Princess Leia was inspired by the original movement of feminism to help everyone out. But calling The Force Awakens some feminist propaganda is just ridiculous. Continuing what was already done. So is The Last Jedi. These films are just going on themes that was already done. And then George Lucas comes around, the original creator of the Star Wars films, claiming that Disney is just a bunch of white slave owners held him captive because of his creations. He doesn't like what was done at the new films, which, if you ask me, is just ridiculous because if you're not liking what they're doing, then why the hell did you allow them to take the rights away from you? This doesn't make any sense. Claimed that Disney Studios are not using the original outline that he had in mind when he had envisioned to make the new Star Wars films 8, 9, and 10. Which, again, just sounds absurd because he stated that when he was finished with the god awful prequel trilogy, he was finished with the films. So he gonna in turn and say this? A lot of people seem to be kissing his ass, and if you ask me, those fans will just come out better. They can't let go of the past. You can't let the series grow into something else. I'm not saying to completely change the franchise, but let it grow into something else as well while cherishing the past. A lot of people just seem to be kissing his ass just because of nostalgia. They're too stuck on nostalgia, and so they're blinded by that kind of thing and just go along with whatever he's saying and then claim the other side is biased while they being biased themselves. There has been female leads, female characters in the Star Wars video games way before Disney ever purchased the rights to any of these films. They're acting as though this kind of a thing was never, ever, ever in Star Wars canon. Books such as these from the expanded universe starts off like this New Republic because they are intended to take place after Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, which is supposed to be expanding on some ideas, themes, and so on and so forth. And these books were released way before Star Wars was ever purchased by Disney. First, there's a certain graph you can look into, so you're going to go into maybe very specific books. They can read in more into it, which of course is a good thing for new incomers. And trust me, folks, there's going to be a lot to read, and I do mean a lot, which is fine if you ask me. It's not even including some of the games, like this one, for example, which is intended to take place in a specific era of Star Wars, way, way, way before the original trilogy. So, I mean, quite some time as well. You can get into that too. Depending on what source material you're reading, you can even the Empire, the bad guys, can take place in different timelines. But like the game I just got to showing you, it's trying to make a comeback because it's been weakened in some ways in its political power. This doesn't include the whole ordeal that Darth Vader was trying to do what he wanted to do. This was again before he ever rose into power. Matter of fact, before he was even born. So there's different places you can go to. Was supposed to be one of the Siths. I guess you can call it one of the warships, so to speak, which of course they had used. Again, depending on what timeline of the Star Wars franchise you're talking about. And speaking of war, here's the good guys on Alderaan right before it blew up, quite some time before, and of course they're gonna have quite a few heated fights throughout here because you know the villains, the Sith, and so forth, wanted to take them over. For quite a bit ahead of time in the Star Wars expanded universe in Episode 1, that same planet I just got to mentioning when Darth Vader kidnaps the princess, and they're questioning her, and she thought she got what she wanted, trying to save her home planet, but of course it gets destroyed. That very planet I got to mention a moment ago gets destroyed. That's kind of that's traumatizing. She sees her home planet gets destroyed right in front of your eyes, right inside a Death Star. The idea here is that it's just like if your hometown gets destroyed right in front of you. And yeah, you're supposed to get attached to it, and there you go. And before anybody says it, I know. Technically speaking, Princess Leia was actually adopted on that planet to be technical here, folks. Blue is good, red is bad. So, give you a little symbolism right here for the heroes and the bad guys. Because the thing is that you're supposed to have a reason to hate the villains, and it's supposed to take place in a specific area of Star Wars. I'm referring to the old era of the Old Republic specifically, in where the heroes are supposed to be fighting them. These outfits are from different eras of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, old and new. So of course they're going to change over time, just like in real life. When it comes to war gear, obviously it's going to be more advanced and get better. But at the same time, it really depends on the planet itself that certain fights were taking place in. Had more better improvement. You had to really get into very specific planets and whatnot. I'm not even a fan of Star Wars, and I think it's ridiculous. Why do I have to point out some things that Star Wars fans should be aware in the first place? The old Republic era of the Star Wars Expanded Universe had occurred over 1,000, or should I say over 2,000 years prior the birth of Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Vader, so on and so forth. And here's a list of books that you could actually get into if you want more details of a specific era of Star Wars. And this is definitely a time period where, yes, this had occurred way prior the Empire had ever actually risen. But of course, there's still gonna be a bunch of fights as you may expect. The good guys versus bad guys, trying to make sure they're taken down and have certain rights for themselves. Kind of like how in real life there'd be a bunch of wars going on, obviously, like on Earth, so to speak. Just like how there had been World War One and World War Two in real life, and we all know, yes, why these might have been major events in human history, but however, yes, there's been some fights, some battles prior to this. Just trying to think of it like that in a sense when you think about it, but in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. For quite a bit of time when Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker were around, the New Republic era, which is basically like this government system where they wanted to fix it up. Kind of like how in governments in real life, even when the government is good, they still need some fixing, and this basically is that when you think about it, folks. And the government has to be some sort of relations with the Galactic Republic, a diplomacy kind of state that governs a galaxy for a large number of years, of course. And that's the idea, folks. And yeah, this basically is what they were trying to fight for. One key component that's different, if you're going to compare to the old one, think of it how Democrats and maybe those liberals, so on and so forth, maybe that exists within this era compared to the older where it doesn't really exist. So it's kind of like having their own politicians, so to speak. Even it's the same thing can be said with soldiers. Of course, this kind of thing was actually hinted at in Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi. Well, of course, there's a new Death Star, and of course the heroes are under a new threat, obviously. So even Luke Skywalker himself was aware of this, and something obviously had to be done about this to basically set things that were in the right path. Case in point, look at the Battle of Endor on land, and then there was the whole bit in outer space. We're trying to help each other out to ensure there was freedom and safety in the galaxy, so to speak. Character Princess Leia had a major role in a lot of this. And later on in the films and storylines, she actually became a general in this kind of a thing, which was brought up in films like Star Wars: The Force Awakens and the other Star Wars films as well. So in this little era of Star Wars, we get to see another branch of the bad guys, the First Order. So it basically taking place after the events of the Return of the Jedi because of what had occurred then, but still carrying on some themes that they want to uphold for themselves. Again, very similar on how somebody was around, but still had followers even after his death, so to speak. So, and then of course, granted, he was like right trying to fight them off. But of course, there were some individuals, fans who are adults now, have kids. They were acting as if there was never such thing as politics in Star Wars. They complained, but it's too political, even though it was already there. The politics were even there. We even had villains fighting amongst each other. And of course, it's gonna be death and destruction, obviously. But even the villains had to actually fight each other in its own lore. This kind of thing did actually occur, depending on what story you read, of course. But still, obviously, folks, I'm not speaking about every single Star Wars fan. Just the toxic fanboys who went on to say that Walt Disney Studios went on and ruined what George Lucas was trying to do, as they claim that they betrayed him. The Disney Studios had apparently betrayed George Lucas and acted like he's been bullied. Therefore, he should boycott Disney as a result of this, ruining what he had envisioned. When in reality, they're just going on and basing it on the source material, which George Lucas had already brought up and allowed to be in the franchise, in the expanded universe. So they're acting as though the Disney Studios had scammed them, when in reality, as far as I'm concerned, George Lucas had already ruined Star Wars with the god-awful prequels. The god-awful prequels are some of the absolute worst films I've ever seen in the sci-fi genre. So if you want to talk about the franchise being destroyed, George Lucas already had done that. In other words, they're just going after Disney just because it's Disney, acting as if their childhood was destroyed. A small list of CEOs who were actually corrupted, and I bet a lot of the toxic fanboys of Star Wars don't even know who these people are, when they did the crime, and what the crime is, and how they got caught. So if you're gonna go on and just complain about Disney CEOs are being rude, mean, or whatever, how about actually doing something about the CEOs who are actually corrupted? Instead of just bitching and moaning how Disney Studios are treating the Star Wars franchise. As far as I'm concerned, they actually improved on it. Yeah, you heard me. They actually enhanced some things. So I should go after people who did some bad. Come on now. The Last Jedi was nowhere near as horrible as they made it out to be. And for the one actress, she had a so-so media account which she ultimately removed because of the fans. They were basically abusing her because of the film. Come on now. Nothing inherently wrong with trying to criticize something, folks. But it's one thing to criticize something and just flat out bash it. As certain toxic fans complain that it's the fault of the liberals or Democrats whom pretty much destroyed this famous franchise, when in reality, these movies were always about diversity. Diversity was always in the very original Star Wars trilogy, yet they seem to fail to realize that very thing they complain about that Disney's doing was always there from the very get-go. It's fine to critique a movie. No movie's perfect. I get that. Yeah, I mean, hell, even the Disney Star Wars films have some faults. They do have their flaws, yes. But I wouldn't go as far as complain that they're the worst films ever made. They're nowhere near as terrible made as they claim it to be. Just because there's some political stuff going on in these films doesn't mean they're necessarily bad. The Star Wars films that are being created by Disney, they're really attempting to be close to source material as much as they could. So yes, their films are pretty violent, and that's another thing I did seem to realize that some of these parents who were fans of the original trilogy had grown up. They've seen the original trilogy when they were a lot younger, and now they have their family of their own. And let's not complain that it's not what it used to be. And that's just ridiculous from the start. If it stays exactly the same, these films would eventually become stale, boring, and just pretty much mundane. It would eventually destroy itself when you think about it because it's not advancing to some other things. I'm not saying these films have to be completely different from what they were. I'm just pointing out that these films will have to eventually change anyway. Even if George Lucas had kept the rights, at some point, these films would have to introduce new ideas or what have you. And even if George Lucas, as he claimed, had some ideas for the new films, he should have filled the contract stating that. He should have more of a partnership with Disney rather than just giving them the rights and whatnot. They should have George Lucas should have just had more of a bigger partnership with Disney than just giving the rights entirely. I mean, he still gets some money out of it, I suppose, but my point still stands. Point being, he should have made a better plan for this deal with Disney. And of course, a lot of these toxic fans would just assume that basically every single person from the LGBT community and its supporters would just go along with these social justice warriors and just trying to promote some sort of propaganda of theirs as if they had one to put into Star Wars, acting as though they don't have a thing going on with themselves. So, I don't like these social justice warriors at all because social justice warriors claim they want change, but at the end of the day, they're just acting really rude and really don't help anybody at all. But you can't just assume that the LGBT community is going to do the exact same thing. It just comes off that you're just speaking out your own ass and act as though you know a thing or two because some group may or may not do this and that. Of course, a lot of these fans are just really vying and just make everybody else feel extremely uncomfortable. So basically, you're removing potential individuals to enjoy these movies as well. And you're acting as though that somebody else is wrong just because they like the Star Wars films that were being produced by Disney. And act as though that they're in the wrong just for simply enjoying it. And they would accuse you for being a certain way just because you're not agreeing with what they have to say. The worst entitlement I've seen in a fan base in such a long time, acting as though what they have to say is the absolute correction in what they have to say. Again, there's nothing wrong with being passionate about something. That's perfectly fine. But you don't have to get up to the point of being a total asshole about it. Just like when they attacked the one actress I just showed earlier, whom appeared in Star Wars Force Awakens, and they attacked the directors and screenwriters just, of course, for supposedly for having some sort of feminist propaganda. And you do have to realize that making movies is difficult. It's not an easy business to get into, and it's nearly impossible to get the movie made the way you envisioned originally. So it's quite difficult to get certain things done right the way you want it to be. And it doesn't help that the certain fan base is acting a certain way. So it just worsens the problem in a lot of ways, and it just comes out really stressful for everybody involved in the motion picture. Or I should say motion pictures, because there's more than one. But that's the thing, folks. I mean, don't get me wrong. In every franchise, there's the lowest points. There's always seems to be a bad sequel in every franchise. There's a rare occasion where it says otherwise. And I do recognize that there's been many bad sequels over the years. There's been a ton of really horrendous bad sequels. It just comes off as though, like, every franchise would at least have one or a few bad sequels. It just comes off like this kind of a thing is inevitable. Again, it's rare. It's really rare that any franchise would escape this. But most franchises that I know of has at least one bad sequel, if not more than one. So it just comes off this kind of a thing is inevitable, having a bad sequel or bad sequels. It happens. It happens to every franchise, unfortunately. This kind of thing seems to be... So yes, folks, making bad sequels is unfortunately a part of any franchise. So the studios or the filmmakers or what have you just want to make a lot of money. Making a lot of money does not have to be a bad thing. I'm not saying that there aren't any good movie going audiences out there. Don't get me wrong, but at times, certain individuals, when they make the reviews, can be quite questionable. I know that professional movie critics are known for being salty, bitter, or what have you, but I can say the exact same thing with the more modern moviegoers, I guess, in some ways. And yeah, the more recent reboot of the Charters Angels, I'm not gonna watch it, but that's only because it's a reboot. And we all know that I hate reboots. But like I was saying, it's doing really, really poorly right now. But of course, men are stated that they're the reason for its failure, which has to be really asinine. So yeah, even actors and actresses can be bitter as well. So even this can be said to professional filmmakers as well. Well, what do I mean exactly? Well, hold your horses, folks, because I am about to tell you. So yes, even the professional filmmakers can be really salty and bitter as well because the director of the remake of the Ghostbusters remake even agreed that men are scum or whatever, even though he's a guy. And yeah, he's not helping. So his film was a failure, by the way. So yes, like I mentioned before, I do understand that films are difficult to make and good movies are possible. I'm not saying good movies are impossible to be made, but I want to pick up this comic book movie up real quick. I've not seen it as of yet, just so you know, but I've seen a lot of YouTubers making this claim, and it's a pretty dumb claim if you ask me, stating that a lot of these social justice warriors and the feminists don't want to see a white man play as the main character in any movie, especially if it's successful. That was a highly, highly successful film, which is fine, I guess. But some YouTubers went to the extent that even the LGBT community don't want a white straight man, to be a success in a film. So the LGBT are bigoted, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even if some of the members are bigoted, doesn't mean they all are. Even if some of them are. You can't just make a big judgment over that. So, okay, maybe they are wrong, of course, about such claims. And that's the thing. A lot of people, especially a lot of people who just want to be kiss ass, can't think for themselves. That's the big statement I'm trying to make here, folks. And yeah, I'm sticking by it. I'm sticking by what I said. And I do believe that Disney is definitely, without a further doubt, as far as I'm concerned, they are doing pretty well when it comes to Star Wars films. They are making good Star Wars films. I know a lot of people like to pick them apart, but that's just because Disney's making them. I wouldn't exactly say they're perfect movies, but I definitely enjoy them a hell of a lot more than the prequel Star Wars trilogy that George Lucas had directed himself. It just came off like George Lucas had lost his touch over the years. That special fire, and with him, that passion, it doesn't quite burn as it used to be. So, in a lot of ways, I feel like George Lucas just became too cocky, and they blamed Walt Disney for certain things. So yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering the fact that he just wants more control. He just wants control of his projects, and he made some lousy movies because of it. He just wants complete control, and as a result, he made some bad movies. So yes, sir, that's true. Almost stopped watching Star Wars altogether because of these god awful films. And yeah, I wasn't even planning to watch the new Star Wars films, but luckily I gave them a shot and I really enjoyed them. And I will continue to watch these films being produced by Disney as long as they continue to make them. So, even the new Star Wars film is coming out, which again I've not seen as of yet, is already getting some bad rep because of the toxic fans. So come on now, that's just dumb if you ask me. But anyway, folks, I think this video has been gone long enough. It's about 30 minutes roughly, a little over 30 minutes, I guess. So I do appreciate anybody for staying tuned. And again, in some ways, this is a rant video. But then again, I'm doing a lot of complaining anyway. I'm usually complaining about something. So anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and take care. Until next time, see ya. Oh yeah.